Biden has 1 week left. In a week from today, Donald Trump will be sworn in, and he's said multiple times essentially all hell will break loose if Hamas does not release those hostages by the time he's inaugurated. So, how much pressure is the United States putting on Hamas and Israel to make this deal happen?
I would say the Biden administration is putting considerable pressure on Israel, and President Trump is trying to put considerable pressure on Hamas. Um, what he means when he says all hell will break loose, we don't know exactly, although J.D. Vance on one of the Sunday programs over the weekend gave us a clue by saying we will enable Israel to do a great deal more. Keep in mind that the Biden administration has supported Israel, but also with a hand often tied behind their back. And sometimes the Israelis have accepted the restraints and sometimes they have not. So when Biden said, I don't want you to go into Rafah, they did go into Rafah and they wouldn't have gotten Sinwar if they had not. I think Trump will say, you do what you have to do, I think, and tell us how we can be helpful.
This sounds like the most promising these negotiations have been going in the past 15 months. The fact that Blinken has said that multiple times, we are very close. This is the closest we've ever been. So, specifically, what are you looking out for next?
Well, it's really I hate to say it this way, but the ball remains as it has been in Hamas's court. If Hamas wants a ceasefire, if Hamas is willing to give up the hostages, it will happen. If Hamas decides no, the hostages are the chips we have to play, and we will not give them up for anything. If Hamas leaders, the commanders in the tunnels think we want to die as martyrs. That's part of this mission. We don't want to go to Algeria or Turkey or somewhere like that. We'll stay here. We'll fight. We'll kill Israelis as long as we can. And through our martyrdom, will be an inspiration for the wars that follow against Israel. One has to keep in mind, Hamas does not want a two-state solution. Hamas does not want a ceasefire. Hamas wants to build back in order to achieve its goals, which have always been very specifically, it's in the charter, they say so, to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. That's their goal.
To that point, then, when you're talking about the changing circumstances in the Middle East, you said Israel's no longer on its back foot. Why then is the ball in Hamas's court essentially?
Because the Israelis have made an offer. That offer has been facilitated by the Biden administration. They said, this is what we can do. The Qataris, the Turks, and others who said Hamas needs A and B and C, it's got to be in there. They've gotten to a point where the Israelis have said, here's the offer, it's on the table. Essentially, we believe they've said, we'll accept it as is. Now Hamas gets to say, okay, we accept it too. Then it has to be verified that they live up to it. Or they may say, no, again, we want three more things. And maybe there are things that Israel can't do. Don't forget that Netanyahu, yes, he's being pushed by Biden. Yes, he wants to do what Trump wants to do. But he lives in a democratic system, and not all members of his party or of his coalition are in favor of this deal as it is. Quite a few of them, probably about 10, think this goes too far. And that at the end of the day, it has to be very clear who wins this war and who loses. Ceasefire should not be confused with peace. The ceasefire may mean that both sides or one side gets to rebuild, reconstitute, regroup, and start the war all over again. Misunderstanding that, mistaking a ceasefire for peace is a common mistake made by diplomats.
To that point, then, in a week, it's going to be a totally new administration in the United States. And we've had a completely changed landscape in the Middle East in the past 15 months. So, how different will that look in relation to the Trump administration?
Well, we'll see what the Trump administration does. I have some certainly hope that President Trump, advised by his National Security Director, Michael Waltz, and by Mark Rubio at the State Department and others, will understand the national security threats that the United States and its allies now face. Tehran, the regime there, which has been saying death to America, chanting that since 1979, death to Israel, should not have a nuclear weapon or the means to deliver it. Every president has said that. None of them have done much about it. I think the Trump administration may understand that Tehran, this regime, this jihadist regime, is very much in an axis with Beijing, with Moscow, and with the North Koreans and others. And this is an axis that is very much anti-American. They're trying to change the world order. I do think that the Trump administration will understand this in a way that I don't think the Biden administration quite has.
There's certainly a lot to look out for. The situation is developing, and as it does, Clifford May, I hope you come back on and join me. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Anytime, Brittany, my pleasure.